Hello, and welcome to another episode of Now Who Would Have Thought? In the roaring, frolicking, wonderful make-believe world of the circus, Bozo was one of the brightest stars of all. Bozo was an elephant, a great, saggy, baggy, obedient elephant. You and I weren't even alive when Bozo was in center ring, for that was many, many years ago. Bozo would waltz and pirouette, lie down and play dead. At the grand finale, swinging a flagstaff in his outstretched trunk, he would lead the circus band. Then, one day, Bozo began to sulk. Minor ailments are not unusual in the big pachyderms. Elephants have tender skins. They really do, you know. A fly that can cause just a tickle can cause an elephant stampede. When staked out, the great beasts are constantly tossing hay and dirt onto their backs. That ever-present layer of hay and dirt is protection from the pricks and tickles of the elephant's worst enemies, flies and mosquitoes. That's why nature equipped them with a switch at each end. Elephants also have tender pads. They get sore feet from even a short walk on concrete. But this was not some physical ailment that the skill of the circus veterinarian could find, or even fix. This was something more, and it got worse. It got so Bozo would trumpet angrily at the boys and girls who offered peanuts, as though he would trample them if he could. 3 times within a week he tried to kill his keeper. Nothing would calm him. That was when the authorities finally decided that Bozo was a public menace and told the owner that he would have to be destroyed. In those days, there were no humane authorities to protect animals from the careless and the cruel. There was no animal shelter or society to protest the day the callous manager decided to make up his losses by selling tickets to Bozo's execution. On Saturday morning, the main tent was filled. Army rifles were racked. The firing squad was waiting. Bozo was waiting. In his big circular cage, Bozo trudged round and round. Now and then he'd lift his trunk and bellow as if he knew. Outside the cage, the ringmaster, in his shiny top hat and tailcoat, was ready to give the signal. Suddenly, a hand was placed on his shoulder. He turned. There stood a short, stocky man with an inconspicuous brown mustache, thick lens glasses, and a brown derby hat. "Wouldn't you like to keep that elephant alive?" the stranger asked. "No chance," growled the manager. "He's a bad elephant. Nothing can make him well now." "Let me go into the cage with him for 2 minutes," the stranger said. "I'll show you that you're wrong." "And in 3 minutes you'd be mincemeat," said the manager. "I thought you would say that," the stranger smiled. "So I brought along a legal release for you. All the risk is mine." The manager looked at the document carefully to be sure it was notarized properly, and it was. "All right," he said. "Why not? I got nothing to lose." "Okay, buddy." And the manager raised his megaphone and broke the sensational news to the audience. Briskly, the unknown man removed his hat and coat. "Now," he said matter-of-factly, "you may open the door." Bozo halted his incessant prowl, turned bloodshot eyes towards the steel door, and trembled as the bolts shot back. The little man, unarmed, stepped inside and slammed the door behind him. Bozo gave one warning squeal of wrath. But suddenly the intruder began to speak, softly. After the first few syllables, the elephant grew warily quiet. The tense audience could not recognize a single word, but it was almost as if the elephant could. The massive body was no longer quivering. It was rigid. The droning voice went on in a tender, quiet cadence. Presently Bozo gave a small cry, childlike and piteous. The enormous head began to wag from side to side. Venturing nearer, the stranger patted the long trunk. Then, with the end of the trunk curled about his wrist, he slowly began to promenade with the elephant around the cage. All at once the audience went wild. The applause was deafening. Cheers piled upon cheers as they reached a crashing crescendo and clung there. When finally the little man left the cage, he told the manager, "There's nothing bad about Bozo. He grew up in India, and he was lonely. That's all. I talked to him in Hindustani and made him feel at home. He's at peace again. He'll be all right now for a long time." The manager stretched out his hand in appreciation, but the stranger did not notice. Or perhaps he did notice and couldn't bring himself to shake hands with a man who would sell tickets to a slaughter. So he just left. It wasn't until then that the manager noticed. He was staring at the legal release, staring at that document in his hand when he saw it. The signature. The signature that was inscribed thereon was none other than Rudyard Kipling, the author of The Jungle Book. Now, who would have thought? This is Chris McCrae. Take care of yourselves and the ones you love most.